provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
Making headlines on First at 9. Rumble in the House. Chaos in Parliament as parliamentarians break into a brawl.
Are we not going to hear the voice of the parliamentarians?
When you violate everything, what will happen? All the other MPs come and oppose it. That is what has happened here.
Sri Lanka has become a laughing stock in the world right now.
We have never seen such partial conduct of a speaker.
Let the public decide. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa reiterates calls for a general election. Hinging on a technicality, UMP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe welcomes election but only under a legitimate regime. Under the radar, in the midst of political chaos, fuel prices reduced. Dwindling support, British Prime Minister Theresa May suffers 2 resignations. A very good evening and welcome to First at 9 on Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now, tempers flared in Parliament today where parliamentarians were seen brawling. The situation led to the Parliament being adjourned until 1:30 p.m. tomorrow. The brawl erupted after UMP MP Lakshman Kirayalla proposed to call a vote on the special statement delivered by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Parliamentarians representing the government, including Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, were offered seats in the government side of the House, while parliamentarians of the United National Party were offered seats in the opposition. Speaker announced to the House that he will no longer recognise any Prime Minister or a cabinet of ministers within the Parliament.
As a no-confidence motion was passed yesterday, that is the 14th of November of 2018, the Cabinet of Ministers is now dissolved in accordance with the sub-article 2 of Article 48 of the Constitution. And as a new Prime Minister or a Cabinet of Ministers are not yet appointed, I will not recognise any Prime Minister, Cabinet Minister, Deputy Minister, State Minister, Leader of the House or any position held by the government. I decided that everyone must be seated, just like how it was done yesterday, for the convenience of the proceedings. Also, it is only the Speaker who can decide on standing orders and Speaker's decisions can only be challenged within the House. I give the floor to Honourable Parliamentarian Mahinda Rajapaksa now.
ගරු මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා අපිට අවස්ථාව දෙනවා.
කතානායකතුමනි ඔබතුමා විසින් නිවේදන කියවීමේදී පළවෙනියෙන් ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඔබ විසින් යවන ලද ලිපියට පිළිතුරු වශයෙන් ඔබගේ තීරණය ලිපිය ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරමින් ජනාධිපති යවන ලද නිවේදනය කියවන්න.
ඒකට මගේ පිළිතුරත් එක්ක මම ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. මමත් පිළිතුරක් අරිනවා ජනාධිපතිතුමාට. දෙකම ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. ඒ අයිතිය මටත් තියෙනවා. දැන් කතා කරන්න දෙන්න. ඒක මෙතන කියන්න අවස්ථාවක් නෑ. මම පිළිතුර අරින්න කතා කරන්න දෙන්න. I am not allowing that. දෙන්නේ මම. ඔව්. I have given the floor to Honorable Mahinda Rajapaksa. මම තීරණය කරන්නේ. I decide on that. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මම තීරණය කරන්නේ.
කතානායකතුමනි
ඒක පාර්ලිමේන්තුවක් අවස්ථාව දෙන්නකො මේක ලෝකෙට මොකද්ද දෙන්නේ පණිවිඩය ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමාට අවස්ථාව දෙන්න හැසිරෙන්න ගරු මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කතා කරලා නෑ කතාන් මැතිතුමා
අන්ත්‍රී උඩත් අගමැති උඩත් නිකම් මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ උඩත් මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහින්ද අතක තියාගන්න මේක අත මේක ලොකු නෑ එයාට ලොකුයි මට ලොකු නෑ මම මේක ඉඳලා තියෙනවා ජනාධිපතිකම් කරලා තියෙනවා අගමැතිකම් කරලා තියෙනවා මේ අගමැතිකම කියන එක ලොකුවක් නෙවෙයි මට ඒකින්ද හිතන්න එපා අගමැතිකමට මේ කතා කරනවා කියලා මේක සත්‍යද මේ රටේ අගමැතිවරේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයක් මේ රටේ නෑ
අපි ආජක මම I already announced ඒක දන්නවද යා හරි
ඉතිහාසයේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ
කතා කරන්න දෙන්න
අඳුරු දවසක් දැක්කේ නෑ ඉතිහාසෙ
I have never seen a darker day than yesterday in the history of this parliament. The president clearly mentioned his reasons for establishing an interim government. The public was under pressure by the 26th of October. The increasing fuel prices because of a pricing formula, rupee depreciation, the intolerable debt burden, the central bank bond scam in the meantime led to the increase of interest rates by twice as much. They were preparing to sell the country's ports, airports and other national resources. And they were soliciting bribes from foreign investors. The country was disappointed because of all this. The UPFA then left the unity government. It was then that the president, as per powers vested on him through the constitution, invited me to take the premiership and establish a new government. My only options were to either accept the president's invitation or not. I could have easily let the UNP stay in power for the rest of the tenure of this government because there was only a year left. But then we were the main opposition force, even though the Speaker never accepted us. We only established an interim government in the hope of holding a general election. And when the President dissolved the Parliament to call for a general election, political parties, including the UNP and the JVP, went to the Supreme Court demanding the election be stopped. This happened for the first time in the country's history. This party was the very same party which postponed the local authorities election and the provincial council election without any shame. The country was filled with fresh hopes when I took over the country. In collaboration with Western ambassadors and his political party, the Speaker claims that a no-confidence motion has been passed against me as per majority voice within the House. This is unconstitutional and undemocratic. You can't pass motions by voice. You could have just taken a proper vote instead of listening to voices. It is the President who appoints the Prime Minister and Cabinet of Ministers of the country, not the Speaker. Do not misunderstand the powers vested on you, Speaker. The Constitution hasn't given you or the Parliament that power. But you already know this and still misuse your power to do otherwise. There are arguments between two parties here. So, without trying to resolve this issue amongst us, the 225 parliamentarians, let's hand over the responsibility to over 15 million voters of this country. As per the Constitution, it is the public and not the Parliament which holds the supreme power. I'm happy that the JVP said yesterday that they will support a general election if it came to that. What does the UNP say? I ask you to join hands with me to hold a fair election in the country. I'm urging all 225 parliamentarians to join and let's go for an election. Don't think about your pensions, the boss will do something about it. Even if fuel prices in the global market were reduced, local prices increased because of a pricing formula. I will reduce the fuel prices once more. Honourable Speaker, we expect you to be an unbiased speaker. It's regrettable that you stand with your political party and Westerners.
However, refuting the statement by the Prime Minister, UNP parliamentarian Lakshman Kiriyala called on the House to take a vote on the Premier's statement.
Point of order. Parliamentary Mantri Mahinda Rajapaksa.
I say we have no confidence on parliamentarian Mahinda Rajapaksa and his speech. I ask to take a vote by name.
By name.
With the suggestion by parliamentarian Lakshman Kiriyala to call a vote by name in objection of the Prime Minister's speech, a tense situation arose in the House. The government MPs closed in on the Speaker's seat and began to argue with the Speaker. MPs of the opposition also got involved and the argument turned into a brawl.
Hey, Nata, I named that.
In the midst of this chaos, cameras captured UNP parliamentarian Palitha Thevara Peruma having a knife in his possession. The speaker lost control of the house as objects were hurled at the speaker by members of the government. This led to the speaker vacating his seat. During the tense situation, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and the leader of the UNP Ranil Wickremesinghe were seen leaving the house. UPFA parliamentarian Dilum Amunugama sustained injuries during the tussle and was admitted to the Sri Javardhanapura hospital.
The events that occurred today were utterly disgraceful. The reality and the truth is they do not have a majority in parliament. So whenever there's an opportunity for a flow test to be conducted, our opponents resort to violence and thuggery to stop the democratic process. So if one very intricately followed the events that took place this morning, whenever the Honourable Speaker attempted to go for a flow vote, that was rubbished. Are we not going to hear the voice of the parliamentarians?
So they are challenging now, if you enjoy the majority in parliament, a letter be handed to the president with 150 signatures. And if you all do that, the current prime minister will resign soon after that.
If the signatures are the main instrument of expressing one's opinion and political allegiances, it's fraudulent and so on and so forth. But the best thing is for a voice call of vote.
There is an agenda here in Parliament. How do you attend to as a speaker? So he's violating everything. So when you violate everything, what will happen? All the other MPs come and oppose it. That is what has happened here.
We condemn how they have been acting within the Parliament. Most of the parliamentarians who are representing joint opposition and SLFP were behaving like thugs. They were threatening Honourable Speaker. They were throwing water bottles, garbage cans. What they did was unprecedented and unacceptable.
We vehemently condemn the deliberate efforts of the Speaker to destroy the image of the country by bringing foreign ambassadors to the Parliament.
They didn't want the vote coming in because we had the majority, and constantly the parliament has a majority on one side and the parliament practices the speaker should be able to be convinced the majority is held by one party and they should be appointed prime minister. So this was unconstitutionally removed prime minister, unconstitutionally dissolved parliament. So Sri Lanka has become a laughing stock in the world right now.
Well, it's so unfortunate. We have never seen such partial conduct of a speaker in Sri Lankan history. It was obvious that the speaker was taking the stand of his party. The speaker announced that there is no prime minister and that he doesn't recognize the government, which is beyond his authority.
So whatever is said and done, can the attack on the speaker justified? Can violence be allowed in parliament?
Violence cannot be accepted. But it's so unfortunate. There was a parliamentarian who had a knife. I don't want to name the person. The solution is nothing but an election.
President Maithripala Sirisena last night informed Speaker Karu Jayasuriya that he will not recognise the no-confidence motion which was passed in Parliament yesterday, as Speaker failed to follow necessary constitutional procedure when dealing with a motion of its nature. The President's response came by way of a letter, as he replied to the letter sent by the Speaker informing him of the decision taken in Parliament on the no-confidence motion.
Following the developments in the Parliament yesterday, Speaker Karu Jayasuriya sent the official letter to President Maithripala Sirisena informing the head of state that a no-confidence motion had been tabled against Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Cabinet of Ministers and the current government. The letter also contained a copy of the no-confidence motion and the decision of the House in that regard, containing signatures of 122 parliamentarians declaring that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers appointed by the President are unconstitutional. In turn, President Maithripala Sirisena also gave his response to the Speaker by way of a letter last night. The President said that in a backdrop where a case pertaining to the Parliament is being deliberated at Supreme Court, measures taken by the Speaker yesterday have in fact endangered the relevant court proceedings. In his letter, the head of state also accused the Speaker of violating the Constitution, standing orders and parliamentary norms by ignoring necessary measures which should be adhered to after a no-confidence motion is presented in Parliament. He also reminded the Speaker that there is no norm to prove the majority confidence for a Prime Minister appointed by the President, whom he believes commands the most confidence in Parliament. President Sirisena also criticised the Speaker for attempting to validate the passing of the no-confidence motion by forwarding a document to the head of state which was not certified by Parliament. The head of state vehemently refuted the Speaker's statement that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers appointed by him are unconstitutional. The President then accused the Speaker of using an old document to prove the number of signatures related to the no-confidence motion, in which an old date had been replaced as the 14th of November 2018. Referring to the Constitution, the President went on to emphasise that it is the President who holds the absolute authority to appoint a Prime Minister for the country.
Now, following the adjournment of the Parliament, Speaker Karu Jayasuriya acknowledged the receipt of the President's letter, in which the head of state was critical of the Speaker's handling of yesterday's no-confidence motion. In his letter, the Speaker said that he respectfully requested the Chamber 3 times for its support to take the vote on the no-confidence motion yesterday. And since it was not extended, he was compelled to take the vote by voice and declare the motion as passed in Parliament.
Speaker Karu Jayasuriya sent another letter to President Maithripala Sirisena today, acknowledging the receipt of the letter sent by the head of state last night. The Speaker at the beginning of the letter highlights that the resolution challenged by the President was passed in Parliament yesterday, with 122 members voting in favour. He also went on to emphasise that he appealed for the support of the House 3 times to hold the relevant vote. The Speaker said, quote, "Though I made a respectful request thrice appealing for their support to duly take the vote, I was not given any opportunity for taking such a vote, and accordingly, in terms of the Standing Order 47-1, I had to take the vote by voices and declare that it had been passed by the majority." Unquote. He also urged the President to take expeditious measures to save the nation from this catastrophe without further delay. Furthermore, the Speaker says that he will be sending a response explaining the constitutional perspective and the other matters stated in the President's letter after obtaining instructions from legal experts.
UMP parliamentarian Manu Ganeshan says that the President had now agreed to accept the view of the majority in Parliament. The parliamentarian expressed these views following a special discussion held between President Maithripala Sirisena and leaders of the parties which signed the no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister and the government at the Presidential Secretariat this evening.
As per President's invitation, party leaders of the opposition along with several UNP members met with him to hold discussions. We came to a decision, but we don't want to reveal it yet. We talked about what should be done when the Parliament convenes tomorrow. This was a very successful discussion. He doesn't agree with what happened at the Parliament and said that the issue must be resolved within the Parliament itself.
Not
at all. This was a very open and cordial discussion. We held discussions with the President regarding two issues, but I'm not going to talk about the second issue here. The President made us a promise regarding the first issue though. We talked about the majority and standing orders of the Parliament. We were able to convince him that whatever is happening inside the Parliament is now affecting the entire country, and that really isn't good. The President is now at a place where he understands about the majority decision of the Parliament. He made a promise that he will not ignore the decision by the majority. So we can now say that all of these problems will be resolved within the next 2-3 days.
The ruling party charges that the Speaker violated parliamentary norms by ignoring to read out the President's statement as the first task on the agenda. They expressed these views to media within the parliamentary complex today while drawing attention to the presence of foreign envoys in the Parliament's gallery and their apparent glee when the Speaker announced that the government did not have the majority in the House.
Honourable Speaker disregarded the agenda prepared by Secretary General of the Parliament. So therefore, the Secretary General and all the officials of the Parliament, they have to abide by the Gazette notification issued by His Excellency the President, not the Speaker, removing the then Prime Minister and appointing the present Prime Minister on 26th of October. That was not challenged in Supreme Courts for last many days, more than 2 weeks. Nobody went to courts and challenged that President's appointment of the new Prime Minister, and thereafter the Cabinet of Ministers and the Secretaries and the Prime Minister's Secretary. So therefore, it is not valid. Now today, Parliament adjourned yesterday, today at 10 a.m. The Speaker's duty, there is not a single member to take formal oath. So then the next item is read out any document sent by His Excellency the President to the Speaker. So unfortunately, without reading the letter sent by His Excellency the President to the Honourable Speaker, the Speaker said, so I am not going to accept the Prime Minister, Cabinet of Ministers or the government. That's what he said. But at the same time, the Leader of the House, Honourable Dinesh Gunawardena, has sent a letter to the Speaker dated 15th of November saying we are not accepting the Speaker's conduct and the so-called no-confidence motion yesterday because it's not in accordance with standing orders or the Constitution. So that was our position. But Honourable Speaker did not mention about this letter. So then he allowed Honourable Prime Minister to make his statement. He made his statement. Then former Leader of the House, Honourable Lakshman Kiriyalla, asked for a vote. Vote for what? Honourable Prime Minister made a statement. Can you just ask for a vote in Parliament for making a statement of a Prime Minister or any Member of Parliament? It's a joke. So then Speaker, by violating all the standing orders today and with biased mind, so he wanted to go for a vote. Then the conduct of Speaker is totally unacceptable.
When the Speaker announced that the ruling party did not have the majority, we witnessed photographs taken by certain media outlets showcasing ambassadors from Western nations clapping their hands in happiness. What was the basis of the no-confidence motion presented yesterday? It stated that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, appointed by the President, are in violation of the Constitution and therefore is illegal. As per the Constitution, the Speaker does not have the power to accept such a no-confidence motion and take it up for debate. The only authority that has this power is the Supreme Court. They try to take this power away from the Supreme Court. Furthermore, our friends from the JVP held a mass protest last month to send the government home, and that is what we did. Now they say it is undemocratic. Then we said it's okay, let us do this in a democratic manner and proposed we hold an election. Then they went to courts and said that they do not want an election. This is the JVP that did not go to courts to demand a local authorities election which was not held for 3 years. This is the JVP that did not go to courts to demand a provincial council election either. We, the government, are giving the public the opportunity to vote here, and you see them going to courts demanding that election not be held. Therefore, it is sad to note that the JVP has become democracy's biggest destroyer.
ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ ලොකුම මාරකයේ බවට පත් වී තිබෙන බව තාම කනගාටු වුණත් කියන්න ඕනි.
UMP MP Partly Champika Ranawaka today called for a presidential election, citing that the president no longer has the public's mandate. Speaking at a media briefing today, the MP highlighted that the president should live up to the promises he made on the 8th of January in 2015 when he was appointed as head of state. Meanwhile, UMP MP Dr. Rajatha Senaratne affirmed that the president, the speaker and the two prime ministers as identified by the government and the United National Front must come together and hold discussions to safeguard the dignity and credibility of the parliament.
During the party leaders' meeting, opposition leader R. Sambandhan informed everyone that if we continue this way, the people's perspective of our parliamentarians as well as the credibility and respect towards the parliament will be in jeopardy. Therefore, the two leaders of the two main political parties must sit down with the speaker and hold discussions. MP Chamal Rajapaksa agreed to this suggestion and said discussions should be held with the two prime ministers, the top brass of the two parties, and the speaker must meet with the president and try to come out of this calamity because what is taking place in Parliament and in the country is not good.
Meanwhile, speaking at the same media briefing, UNP MP Partly Champika Ranawaka called on President Maithripala Sirisena to hold a presidential election to prove that he still commands the trust of the people, citing that the president has lost the public's mandate.
Parliament will be resummoned tomorrow, 1:30. We have no problem with the free and fair elections because we who created this conducive environment to hold election. So we urge President to accept the majority decision here in Parliament, and by Constitution he is bound to accept what is being dictated here in Parliament. So as per the Constitution, 48-2, yesterday's voice vote against the purported Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, entire cabinet including the purported Prime Minister being dissolved now. It's automatic and he and his cabinet is now illegal. So President should take a firm decision to appoint a person from the Parliament who can command the majority, that is Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, today heralded his party's readiness to face both a presidential election and a general election together. He, however, added that such an election should be held under legitimate government and the polls should be conducted constitutionally. He made this remark addressing a rally in Colombo this evening.
A rally organised by the United National Party was held at the Lipton Circus in Colombo this evening. The rally, which demanded to defeat anti-constitutional moves and to strengthen democracy, was attended by a number of United National Front affiliated party leaders as well as the MPs who represent the relevant parties.
Some thought that nothing has changed during the good governance regime, but we see now that we have a fully independent judiciary. You might have seen who are afraid of a vote in Parliament. When a vote was called, some began to behave like beasts. We challenged them to face a vote in Parliament tomorrow. Everyone questioned me about my stance. My decision is the decision of the people. My decision is the decision of the party and the party's working committee. We want an election and we will prove who has the legitimate power and who does not. We brought the 19th Amendment to the Constitution and strengthened it, but the President disregarded the Parliament. JVP MP Anurakumara Disanayaka brought a no-confidence motion against Mahinda Rajapaksa. 122 MPs signed the petition. The Speaker sent it to the President. The President should accept it and he can't reject it. Some say that the country can be ruled by a minority government. It can be done if it is not challenged in Parliament, otherwise it has to prove its strength. If it loses, the government becomes invalid, and that's what happened today. We are ready at any moment to show our strength in Parliament. I am also ready to show the majority as the Prime Minister. We like to go for an election, but such an election should only be held under a legitimate regime elected by the public. We don't fear an election, but it has to be constitutional. We are also ready to hold both the presidential and general election together if anyone wants it.
ජනාධිපතිවරණයයි පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයයි දෙකම තියන්නත් අපි ලෑස්ති.
Minister of Labour, Foreign Employment and Petroleum Resources Gamini Lokuge announced today that fuel prices of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation will be reduced with effect from midnight. He stated that prices of both octane 92 and 95 petrol, auto diesel as well as super diesel will be reduced by 5 rupees per litre. This is the second price reduction to come into effect under the interim government, with the first coming on the 2nd of this month. With the latest reduction in prices, octane 95 petrol will be sold at 164 rupees per litre, while a litre of octane 92 will be made available at 140 rupees. In the meantime, the price of a litre of auto diesel will be 111 rupees from midnight, with a litre of super diesel set to be sold at 136 rupees. With that, let's now cross over to a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. Now, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs has appointed Asita Thalawatha, a veteran in the corporate world, to the board of directors of the National Savings Bank. Thalawatha is presently the chairman of Management Systems Private Limited, and he also served as the country managing partner of the Ernst & Young for over 10 years. Stocks closed firmer for a fourth session in 5, but turnover was dull due to political uncertainty and the policy rate hike. The Osha Price Index closed in green as a result of price gains in counters such as Lanka Oryx Leasing Company, Melster Corp and Distilleries, with the turnover crossing 135 million rupees. A similar behaviour was witnessed in the S&P SL 20 index. We now have Hiruni Pereira from First Capital Holdings for a detailed report.
SPI witnessed a volatile trend throughout the day, reaching an intraday high of 5,971 and closed at 5,967, gaining 20 points. Turnover and volume dipped compared to the previous day, while turnover recorded a 2-month low. A net foreign inflow was witnessed for the fourth consecutive day amidst low foreign participation.
The Sri Lankan rupee fell to an all-time low today, continuing its record-setting spree as political uncertainty outweighed the positive impact of a policy rate hike. The rupee hit a fresh low of 176 rupees and 80 cents per US dollar, surpassing the previous record of 176 rupees and 60 cents hit in the prior session. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day. British Prime Minister Theresa May faces a grilling of former MPs later over the draft Brexit agreement the UK has reached with the EU. Today, Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab resigned, saying he cannot in good conscience support the draft deal, while Work and Pensions Secretary Esther McVey followed an hour later. May has also faced a backlash from Tory Brexiters and her Democratic Unionist Party backers, with suggestions of move to force a no-confidence vote.
British Prime Minister Theresa May announced last night that the cabinet has given its backing to her draft Brexit deal. May delivered her message outside 10 Downing Street after an emergency meeting of her cabinet. She acknowledged the difficulties facing the government and the country over Brexit, adding that the decision is in the best interest of the whole United Kingdom. May said the cabinet had a long, detailed and impassioned debate and that the draft withdrawal agreement was the best that could be negotiated with Brussels. The day didn't start well for May as Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab resigned, saying he cannot in good conscience support the UK's draft Brexit agreement with the EU. An hour after, Work and Pensions Secretary Esther McVey followed. Today could also determine whether May faces a vote of no confidence among her Conservative ranks in the House of Commons. Media speculations in London has it that a number of MPs are considering whether to send in letters that would trigger a vote among all of the Conservative MPs. If a vote does take place, it would either secure May's position at number 10 for at least a year or see her deposed and replaced. It would depend on whether she could survive a no-confidence vote and whether she would decide to face a challenge in an election among leadership contenders. In the meantime, the European Union's Brexit negotiator Michael Barnier said the British government's agreement yesterday to a draft treaty was a decisive step towards ensuring Britain's orderly withdrawal from the bloc. Addressing reporters in Brussels less than an hour after British Prime Minister Theresa May made her announcement, Barnier said the draft treaty was the basis for the trust we need to negotiate a new partnership.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Today is the third day in the second test against visiting England, played at the Pallekele International Stadium. Resuming the day on 26 for the loss of 1 wicket, Sri Lanka extended their total to 336 all out in their first innings with a lead of 46 runs. Roshi and Silva struck 174 ball 85 and guided Sri Lanka's lower order, enabling the 300-plus tally. Opener Dimuth Karunaratne scored a valuable 63, while Dhananjay De Silva chipped in with a half-century. Coming out to bat in their second innings, England did not get off the mark and they managed to keep all their wickets intact.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
Moving on to our weather forecast now, the severe cyclonic storm Gaja, located over the central Bay of Bengal, is expected to cross towards the South Tamil Nadu coast and move away from Sri Lanka during the next 24 hours. As a result, strong winds and heavy showers in the northern part of the island and the nearby coastline are expected to reduce gradually from tomorrow onwards. However, heavy falls of over 100 millimeters are forecast in the Jaffna Peninsula, while showers are to occur in Anuradhapura and Puttalam districts. High winds of up to 70 to 80 kilometers per hour can also be expected over northern province. And that's all we have from First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, we'd like to take you to Prague city, which is the equal of Paris in terms of beauty, with a history that goes back to a millennium. Prague is the capital and the largest city in the Czech Republic, which is home to about 1.3 million people. We hope you enjoy these visuals and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.